All right. Now, if OllyDbg is a lot of fun, and everybody loves using it, but you cannot debug the Windows kernel with OllyDbg. You must use Microsoft's WinDbg. And WinDbg has been kind of old and clunky and hard to use. And I was complaining about it in my class, and a Microsoft engineer was taking my class, and he sent me an email and said, we have a new version that's much better called WinDbg Preview, only on Windows 10. And I said, well, okay, now I'm finally using Windows 10 with the Flare VM. Let's check it out. And it's not as nice as OllyDbg, but it's a whole lot better than it used to be. And I found out you can have good fun in the Windows kernel. So you download this thing from the Microsoft Store to get the preview version of WinDbg. And then you can start debugging things. So if you launch Notepad, you can just examine it, and you can watch as it loads. It's going to show you Notepad and show you all the libraries it loads. So here they are going by, so that's kind of nice. There used to be all these WinDbg requirements to set this search path to find the Microsoft symbols, but now it just does all that automatically, which is a lot better than it used to be. And so now, all right, you can see the Notepad process. All right, that's fine, don't care about that. Anyway, so now if you scroll down to the bottom, you can see that it has stopped at a break instruction, and you can now execute commands here. You can type in command line commands, but there is a little bit of ability to just use things with the mouse too. But anyway, down here you see the stack frame laid out. So this is the calls that got you here. Here's the stack frame of the ntdil process up here and here and here. I'm in this process where I've hit a break. And this process was called by this one, and which was called by this one, called by that one, called by that one. That's what the stack frames show you. They show you all the functions that were called to reach this point in the code. You can view symbols. Examine the name of the executable bang star. That will show you all the symbols in Notepad, like WinMain. Every C program has to have a main routine to start out, and this is C++, so I think it's called WinMain, but you have a place which is where you enter the code. Now you can set another breakpoint. There's different kinds of breakpoints. BU sets a breakpoint of a sort on WinMain, and now it will break when it hits that. So G will go, or you can hit this nice go button up here, as some of the graphical environment has. It'll run to the breakpoint and tell you breakpoint 0 hit at WinMain, and here you are. And now you see, I'm now in Notepad in the WinMain, and that was called after Notepad main CRT startup, and that was called from a kernel 32 function, and that was called from an ntdil function. So Windows, the operating system, called ntdil and said time to launch a program. That called kernel 32, and that called Notepad. So this is the 4 programs that are currently running to make this Notepad window run. LM shows you the loaded modules, and you see all these things that are loaded into the kernel, or I think into userland, and you can now do a stack trace with K, and that just gives you the same information you saw before with a little more information about the addresses. These are the 4 functions that are running when you're running Notepad. So that gives you a little orientation of how it lays out memory and uses functions here. Now, the next thing might be good to track down API calls. So ntdil is a module that is used to execute code for almost everything in Windows. So I can look at the functions in ntdil that create a file. With star, create file star. And you'll get a list of them. There's only a few of them. And the one I care about is ZW create file. So I can put a breakpoint on ZW create file, and then it will break and stop whenever a file is created. So I add that breakpoint. Now go into Notepad. Notepad will hit the breakpoint. And now you can see I'm in here in the Windows ntdil library, executing some assembly language commands. And if I look at the stack trace, it is now quite a lot bigger. So here's ntdil create file. That was called from map resource file, map and verify resource, and so on. All right, you can see the threads. Microsoft processes actually go by threads, and so on. So you learn just a few basic things here, and you can see Notepad. All right, once you've got a little familiarity with WinDbg, then you can do source level debugging, which is what you would do if you're writing an application. So you compile a C++ program. Here's a simple program that just defines a couple of variables and then calls a function and then does a little math on them. And the point is, when it gets to here, it's going to divide by 0. So this is a function that's going to have an error and crash. So you load that thing and run it. It will hit an exception and crash, and you can then examine the crash here. So this is the joy of userland debugging. And what you can do is you can find the symbols in your app, and you can now do source code debugging. It will show you your source code here, and you can put breakpoints in source code. You do not need to read the assembler. You put a breakpoint here and step-by-step these, and it will show you the values of the local variables as you go ahead. So that's very nice. All right, and I'm gonna stop and put this one up.